morning, everyone. It's almost afternoon. I will probably use this green mic, if you don't mind. So, whatever is written in the Bible can be applied to our life. Even though the story may be written in the Old Testament and belongs to ancient days, it can be applied to our life as well. Our topic today, when idols help. So, looking at the title of this sermon, you may ask, do the idols help at all? Isn't it written in the book of Psalms 135, 15 to 17? The idols of the nations are silver and gold, made by human hands. They have mouth but cannot speak, eyes but cannot see. They have ears but cannot hear, nor is there breath in their mouth. The idols seem to be dolls and not the magic objects. They, however, are made to represent the supernatural forces. Evil forces use these lifeless objects to imitate communication with the invisible worlds. So, it seems that idols really may help sometimes to those who believe in their power. That's why people hold them, pray before them, serve them. We may ask, ancient people kept idols, but how can this be relevant to us, people of 21st century, educated people? Do people in big cities have their idols too? Idolatry isn't confined to worshiping a golden statue. It's much broader than that. Today's idols are more in the self than on a shelf. It's maybe money, career. Much of the idol worship today centers around jobs we do and the positions we hold. Entertainment, we are obsessed with being entertained. Physical appearance, people spend hours in gyms, spend thousands on products and plastic surgery to look attractive, younger, or like someone famous. Romantic love, because we know that it's everywhere in our culture, and for many, their lives are controlled by sex. Comfort. We have made our lives much easier and much more comfortable than at any other time in the history. Tasks that used to take all day can be done in minutes now. Technology devices, another issue. For many, they simply cannot live without their phones. If we are even sitting still for a few minutes, and we can't help but reach to pick up our phones. If you don't believe me, go into your phone settings on screen time and check how many times you spend in your mobile phone. You can see how many hours a day you spend looking at your phone and how many times you pick it up. Summing up this part. Jean Calvin, whom you definitely know, a French theologian, pastor, and reformer in Geneva who lived 5 centuries ago during the Protestant Reformation, he once said, "Man's nature is a perpetual factory of idols." So let's talk of idols. And we will read the story in the book of Judges in chapter 17 and 18. The story in chapter 17 tells us about a man named Micah from the hill country of Ephraim. He was an Israelite, and his grandparents entered the promised land with Joshua. After that, the family probably lost relationships with God, though remained religious. That's interesting. When you lost a relationship with God, but still remain religious, keep rituals and practicing some They were setting money aside for God, but never brought them to sanctuary. And it seems they very rarely attended the sanctuary. Maybe didn't attend it for decades. And that was not because of the distance. Because the tabernacle, the sanctuary, was situated in Shiloh, right in the hill country of Ephraim, according to Judges chapter 21, verse 19. So you can see here on the screen, I put asterisks here, red asterisks, where the Shiloh was. And during the period of Judges, Shiloh was the major religious center, and that was on the hill country of Ephraim, right around the corner of Micah's house. Yet, it seems they did not like something in Shiloh, the style of worship, priests, or whatever, so they decided not to go there, and thought to establish their own service, the right one. They planned to make own shrine at home one day. And we can read in the book of Judges, chapter 17, now a man named Micah from the hill country of Ephraim said to his mother. So we are given that dialogue. The 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from you, and about which I heard you utter a curse, I have that silver with me. I took it. Then his mother said, the Lord bless you, my son. So she uttered curse before, but she didn't think it was on her son. So now she replaced it with blessing. When he returned the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother, she said, I solemnly consecrated my silver to the Lord for my son to make an image overlaid with silver. I will give it back to you. So after he returned the silver to his mother, she took 200 shekels of silver and gave them to a silversmith who used them to make the idol. And it was put in Micah's house. And now this man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and some household gods, and installed one of his sons as his priest. The reason for their own private cult is very simple. Micah's family nurtured their exclusiveness. Shiloh, on the contrary, was the place where all Israelites were equal before God. No one family, no one tribe was exclusive. They were supposed all live in peace, because the word Shiloh means peace. And in some prophecies of the Old Testament, it attributes to the Messiah, to the peace giver, peacemaker, to Jesus Christ. So when the Israelites were gathered to worship, there must be peace among them, because they come to a God peacemaker. But Micah's family believed their right to have own private access to God. And they said, priests don't teach properly. All the rituals are kept in empty shelter. Who knows if God abides there or not? If he sees our sacrifices or not? How do priests interpret the will of God? Since Joshua, no priest had witnessed a supernatural revelation. Maybe God abandoned them and they teach lies. We want to learn the will of God by ourselves, so we need our own shrine. What's wrong if we make an image of the Lord? Another question comes, did they remember the story of the golden calf? I suppose in their times, this story was the most popular and recited story of their community. Remember that in the time of Judges, the only written books of the entire Bible, were only 5 books of Moses, maybe book of Job as well. So they could hear these stories of golden calf and some other stories very often. These people didn't attend the place of worship where the priests taught the law, and they did not learn the law. They did not remember even the 10 commandments, yet were keen to run own sanctuary. Another issue of this family was theft. Micah stole money from his mother. So as you read through the book of Judges, you will see the real moral state of Israelites in those days. His mother admits that this money was dedicated to the Lord. She consecrated money, made it a God's belonging, but continued to manage it by herself. Since money was not returned to Shiloh, we assume it was stolen from God. The money were used for the family purposes. Though the purposes were of religious matter, money did not serve God's goal to save the lost. After all, Micah makes gods in addition to the main idol of the Lord. It's unbelievable how just 3 generations after the time of Joshua and entering the promised land, they already make the idol of the Lord, the household gods, the ephod, probably the altar, and establish their own private shrine. So this is a complete mixture of true worship and paganism here. So the household gods, who they were, these were supposedly the images of ancestors. Each family believed in their exclusiveness because of their glorious ancestors, and they carved their images and hold in their house, and sometimes consulted the spirits of the ancestors. And they asked for guidance. They asked them for blessings. People believed that the deceased are not dead, but dwell in the unseen realms. The Bible doesn't teach like that, and Moses in Torah never taught anything like that. But people who took a lot from paganism, a lot of ideas from paganism, they believed. All these ideas, of course, Micah's family accepted from the nations of Canaan. Thus, in almost 3 generations from times of Joshua, people returned to the cults. This, how quickly the world can swallow us if we don't go to church, don't participate in service. This, how quickly it happens, the secular shift. So if we don't keep connection to community of faith, if we don't read the word, we are in a big danger. And Micah doesn't notice this big danger. For him, it works all well, and for him, idols help. In fact, when someone makes an image of the Lord, he needs to draw the face. Imagine, you need to draw the face of the Lord. Now, I would invite you, close your eyes and imagine how God's face looks like toward you. Close your eyes and imagine what kind of face God has towards you in this particular moment. So, is he smiling at you? Is he crying over you? And the next moment it may change. Yet the idol cannot change. You can open your eyes. So if you imagined, I will not ask you who is imagining God crying over you, of course. But sometimes we feel God might be not very happy with what we do, how we live, whatsoever. But if you make an idol and draw its face, you more likely will do smiling face. So by looking at idols' drawn face, you cannot learn the truth. And you don't need. The purpose of making idols is to make God smile at you at all times. One of Micah's sons was dedicated as a priest. Yet, without the knowledge of the law, he was a useless priest. That's why Micah used an opportunity and invited a Levite to serve in his shrine. They probably brought the neighborhood together. They probably placed the idol in a center, put flowers before it, burned some incense. They installed this special holy place, and they anoint the idol and his son with the anointing oil, prayed the Lord, sang songs. So there was a worship. But that was idol worship, not the worship of the Lord. And we read in the book of Judges, a young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, who has been living within the clan of Judah, left that town in search for some other place to stay. On his way, he came to Micah's house in the hill country of Ephraim. Micah asked him, "Where are you from?" "I am a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah," he said, "and I am looking for a place to stay." Then Micah said to him, "Live with me and be my father and priest, and I'll give you 10 shekels of silver a year, your clothes and your food." So the Levite agreed to live with him, and the young man became like one of his sons to him. Then Micah installed the Levite, and the young man became his priest and lived in his house. And Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will be good to me, since this Levite has become my priest." Another time, the situation seems to be out of logic. Why the Levite went away from his own place? Why did he decide to serve in a private shrine? How Micah believed that God will favor his shrine just because of the Levite? The answers may be many. One of the explanations is the Levite was very poor, but Micah was very rich. Remember, Micah had spent 1,100 of shekels of silver for his shrine, idol, household gods, ephod, and so on, while just 10 shekels of silver was more than enough for a man's annual income. The Levite realized his benefits. Who has ever made a Levite to be a priest? Priests were from Aaronic tribe. Here, a Levite was made a chief priest of this rich shrine and the whole household and neighboring village. Idols help. His task was to carry on rituals, sing praises to God, pronounce blessings, and make some fortune-telling. The young man was clever enough to see that people are happier when you tell them of good fortune, when your God is smiling at them, when you do not show them the reality of their apostasy from God. That's how the Levite turned into medium, maybe into psychologist for neighboring village. So he said to them what they wanted to hear, never told them the truth, though maybe he knew the truth. He was carefully analyzing what people wanted to hear and then told them exactly what they wanted. Isn't it a dream church? God's face is constantly shining upon you, despite whatever you've done. The priest is kind to you, preaches whatever you wish, You can effectively control your worship leaders since you pay them salaries. What a Micah! Few days ago he was a thief. Now he is a chief. Isn't it a transformation of character? Idols do help to those who use them like this. The following chapter, Judges 18, pictures not just a family messing up with idolatry. The Bible goes deeper and shows us the whole tribe messing up with idolatry. To this, a flourishing cult in Micah's home will contribute a lot. And we start to read in chapter 18. Before we read in chapter 18, we read, in those days the tribe of the Danites was seeking a place of their own where they might settle, because they had not yet come into inheritance among the tribes of Israel. Imagine, almost 100 years passed, but they are still unsettled. They were large in number, but lacked of courage. The only brave man from this tribe was Samson. Despite his victories, the Danites were the last tribe without a land to live. Instead of fighting enemies, they assimilated. They learned the cults, accepted them, and had no reason to fight for the truth. And we read these texts. The Amorites confined the Danites to the hill country, not allowing them to come down into the plain. Now, after decades of life in the mountains, Danites were looking for a quick and easy solution, and they found it. The idols help. So that, and you can see here on a map the 12 tribes, and the hill country of Ephraim is almost next to country of Dan. So the Danites sent 5 of their leading men to spy out the land and explore it. So they entered the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah, where they spent the night. When they were near Micah's house, they recognized the voice of the young Levite, because he probably was singing songs, prayers, or whatever. So they turned in there and asked him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? Why are you here?" He told them that Micah had done for him and said, "He has hired me, and I am his priest." Can you hire a priest? Unbelievable, the situation here, described here, but the good thing is that the Bible tells us truly what had happened. So he has hired me and I am his priest. Then they said to him, "Please inquire of the Lord to learn whether our journey will be successful." The priest answered him. So the priest probably went there, placed money before the idol of the Lord, and went back. Somehow he decided that the journey will be good. "Go in peace," he said. "Your journey has the Lord's approval." He speaks for the Lord here. But it doesn't mean that the Lord approves. The people seem okay with what they see. They are not in confusion or in doubts about Micah's cult, hired Levite, idol of the Lord, and so on. For them it looks right, and it's a well-timed solution. They wanted God's approval, and now they have God's approval. In the majority, Israel always was like that. And we read it, a confirmation of it in Sermon of Stephen, or in Sanhedrin, in Book of Acts. Stephen said, "Did you bring me sacrifices and offerings 40 years in the wilderness, people of Israel. You have taken up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god Rephan, the idols you made to worship. This is how the life was going in those days. We know about the golden calf only. However, there were seemingly many more gods and idols. They were hidden from Moses' eyes, but they were not hidden from God's eyes. And centuries later, God says to them, I know what you did. Moses doesn't know. The 5 spies went their way and found a place. They came to Laish, where they saw people living in safety and prosperity, peacefully, and not communicating much with Amorites and other pagan nations. Because these people had no protection from anyone around them, the Danites found a good opportunity for warfare. They sent 600 men armed for battle to destroy Laish. And we know what the book of Judges says in verses 9 and 10. Come on, let's attack them. We have seen the land and it's very good. Aren't you going to do something? Don't hesitate to go there and take it over. When you get there, you will find an unsuspecting people in a spacious land that God has put into your hands. A land that lacks nothing whatever. Could this affair have God's approval? Did God send people to kill one another, to grab someone's land, or sanction it by any chance? The people of Laish were not among the 7 nations doomed to destruction, according to Deuteronomy 7. They were not one of those nations, pagan nations of Canaan. So they had to be left alone, not taken, not destroyed. God did not allow the Israelites to fight against this peaceful city, not to grab their land. Again, the need to manage God appeared here. How shall we make the Lord to change his mind? This is the point when idols help. People assume that the image of the Lord in Micah's shrine showed them the land. The Levite prayed before idol, placed money before it, and said, "Go in peace, your journey has the Lord's approval." So Danites came to believe that God blessed their military plans. Moreover, they probably were still uncertain. That's why before the battle, they visited Micah's house once again and decided to take the idol with them onto battle. So the idol showed them the land. They said, "Good idol, we will take it to us and we'll serve him, this idol." So they simply robbed Micah. And we can read in the book of Judges, chapter 18, from verse 13. From there they went on the hill country of Ephraim and came to Micah's house. Do you know that one of these houses has an ephod, some household gods, and an image overlaid with silver? Now you know what to do, they said one to another. So they turned in there and went to the house of the young Levite at Micah's place and greeted him. The 600 Danites armed for battle stood at the entrance of the gate. The 5 men who had spied out the land went inside and took the idol, the ephod, and the household gods, while the priest and the 600 armed men stood at the entrance of the gate. So they called the priest. Priest was talking to them while the 5 men went away. Probably they had an excuse. We need to pray another time before the idol. Instead of that, they grabbed the idol, grabbed ephod and household gods and everything from there and went away, robbed. When the 5 men went into Micah's house and took the idol, the ephod, and the household gods, the priest said to them, "What are you doing? They answered him, "Be quiet. Don't say a word. Come with us and be our father and priest. Isn't it better that you serve a tribe than clan in Israel as a priest, rather than just one man's household?" And you know what was his answer? The priest was very pleased. He took an ephod, the household gods, and the idol, and went alone with the people. So, first of all, it's a big question. Was this Levite like a son to Micah at all? He betrayed him so easily, took stolen possessions and disappeared quickly. Look at what idols do. They sometimes help, but what do they do to humans? What harm they cause to spirituality? Aren't we degrading? Those who make them, says Psalm 135, those who make them will be like them, and so will all who trust in them. People ask idols for help, use them in their affairs, but they don't notice how much they degrading spiritually, morally. After all, Micah appeared on the scene. He gathered the neighbors and chased the Danites. He needed these idols so much. Yet, the story with idols always has someone being robbed, deceived, or humiliated. As they shouted after them, so Micah was chasing the Danites, as they shouted after them, the Danites turned and said to Micah, "What's the matter with you that you called out your men to fight?" He replied, "You took the gods I made and my priest and went away. What else do I have? How can you ask what's the matter with you?" He says, "Where is justice?" But idols don't manage justice. They are not responsible for that. So the Danites answered, "Don't argue with us, or someone of men may get angry and attack you, and you and your family will lose your lives." So you lost your silver and gold, and then you will lose your lives. So the Danites went their way, and Micah, seeing that they were too strong for him, turned around and went back home. Due to idols' help, Micah lost more than 110 annual salaries in silver. He lost gods that were used like trading guarantee documents, lost his own pride and fame. His comfortable home church now was desolated. What gods are these that anyone can move away? The Danites went their way and with idols' approval attacked Laish. And we read in the book of Judges, "And went on to Laish against the people at peace and secure. They attacked them with the sword and burned down their city." And they had no God's approval in reality. This is how they believed in lies. Let's look closely at Danites. Dan means a judge. Dan was the son of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant in the story of Jacob's family. And yes, you probably would recall that once Rachel also stole the gods of her father. Do you remember that story written in Genesis? Then you learn from the story that Rachel could not have a child for a long time, but the fertility cult that controlled her mind demanded to have at least one. So Rachel gave her servant to her husband as a surrogate mother. Bilhah gave birth to a son, and Rachel called him a judge, that is, to judge against her sister. Why do we recall this story? Because there are family patterns of life that rule over us and prompt our decisions and choices. and we need to discover them. Otherwise, we just walk this road again and again from generation to generation and hit the same obstacles. Think of your family scenario. Now, the family scenario of the tribe of Dan in Israel was to judge the others. They had no own land for so long because instead of fighting for truth and fighting with enemies, they were judging others. They were lack of courage because they were judging others. There was no time to build up own life. They were too busy on judging others. Nobody loved them at all. Danites separated from their brothers more and finally created own place of worship. They even didn't go to Shiloh because they had to live in peace with all the brothers, all their tribes. But they didn't want it. Separated more and more, stressed their exclusiveness, and finally created their own place of worship. The chapter 18 in Book of Judges ends up with the words, there the Danites set up for themselves the idol, and Jonathan, son of Gershom, the son of Moses, and his sons were priests for the tribe of Dan until the time of the captivity of the land. They continued to use the idol Micah had made all the time the house of God was in Shiloh. They always had their own separate center of worship. Do you actually recognize some modern people here, modern Christians? This is quite common story nowadays with Christians, thinking of much of themselves, thinking too low of others, setting their own group of worship. What is God's attitude to Danites? When Jacob was about to die, he gathered all his sons, all the 12, and he gave them the last blessing. And to the Danites, Jacob gave very strange blessing. Let's read. He said, "Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a whipile on the path that bites the horse's heel so that its rider tumbles backward. I look for your deliverance, Lord." These are quite strange words for a final blessing. Nothing good is said. The prophetic image of a serpent appears as Dan continues the work of Satan. Those who the Danites injured by their criticism fell off their horses. People are stopped and even are turned from God. Would Father Jacob praise this? Would God like this? The only what Jacob says, "I look for your deliverance, O Lord." Imagine how the one, rich and respectful, having own comfortable private place of worship, finally will miss his chance to enter the kingdom of God. And this is real danger to miss to enter the kingdom of God, because in the book of Ezekiel 48, we find the Danites mentioned among the restored Israel. So the book of Ezekiel says, after Babylonian captivity, all tribes will come and settle and restore Jerusalem and Israel. So they were mentioned among those tribes. But in prophecy of Revelation chapter 7, the name of Dan is excluded from among the the sealed servants of God. They were given a chance of restoration, but lost it completely. And you know how the time of Babylonian captivity and return is connected to the time of Jesus. You know that there were 70 times 7 given to the people of God. And so people came, start to rebuild Jerusalem, reestablish Israel, and they were given time However, not everyone used it properly. And the book of Revelation was written in the days of John. So it was written in the 1st century, already after the time 77 came to an end. And what we have? We have no name of Dan in Revelation 7. He is excluded from among the sealed servants of God. And suddenly Jeremiah pictures Danites in terms of apocalyptic warfare, but they are fighting against God's people. And we read, the snorting of the enemy horses is heard from Dan. They have come to devour the land and everything in it, the city and all who live there. This picture of war clearly reflects the way Danites destroyed the city of Laish. Over the centuries, their cruelty was not diminished. So they followed idols and went to nowhere. Do you know what made them like that? The idols hidden in their hearts. When an idol sits in your heart, it makes you selfish. It causes you to look for your own benefits. It allows you to assume the right of judge. The tribe of Dan exists in every church. Yet, we are called to a different experience. We are to reflect Christ's invisible virtues. Jesus is beyond our understanding, so we need to keep the incomplete image of Jesus before our eyes. We need to keep the incomplete image of Jesus before our eyes. Our mind shall always give extra room to Jesus, to be different to what we know about him. He likes to surprise his followers. He is not what we expect him to be. Much greater he is. When we make Jesus think like us, speak like us, we limit him to an idol. Instead, Jesus is to broaden our understanding. And it happens when we read the Bible. We cannot see Jesus. He's invisible to us, but we cannot see him on the pages of the Bible. And every time we read the Bible, we need to ask ourselves, what new message have I found in the passage I've read? If you read with the attitude, I know all this, nothing is new, this is not a healthy sign. This is how idols start crystallizing in our hearts. Renewing our mind constantly brings us into healthy Christianity and closer to God. So, today, may God help us to destroy the idols, cast the spirit of separation and critique out, and open our hearts for God's love and grace. Amen.